want to do a quick activity with you. And the activity that I'm going to be doing with you, you guys are going to run it at the circle level. Are we okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have a dilemma. It's a cold winter's day, like today. And a hot and delicious bowl of soup is placed on the table in front of you. Okay? Two of you really, this is like Natasha and Kinelwe, both like ogling that bowl of soup. The question is, what would you do? Okay? So now I am going to break you in 2 rooms. You're going to be in pairs, okay? And you're going to have 5 minutes to decide what to do. I think the instructions are pretty clear, right? Yeah, so let's hear. There were 4 rooms. How did it go, guys? Who wants to go first? What did you decide?
This was weird because there were so many factors that we didn't know. Like, what are the other circumstances? Is this the last bowl of soup in the world and Yavini and I are the last people? Is there only one bowl and one spoon and it's Corona and we don't want to? We were like,
so what did you decide?
So we decided, because we came to a very simple solution. I don't like chunky soup, but I like the liquid, and Yavini likes the chunks. So I was going to drink the liquid bits and she was going to eat the bits.
That's great. So you were going to split it.
Yes.
Well done. Well done. Okay. And then, and then which other group?
Boy Puss and I. The first thing we find out from each other is if any of us on a diet.
Okay.
I mean, they say what is diet? Well, it depends on the soup.
That looks very healthy. That vegetable soup.
So first, and then so whoever's not on the diet, will eat, and the other one will not eat. Next, because again, you don't know what else is there. So if there's anything else accompanying the soup, so if it's bread roll or whatever people have, then you just split everything 50-50. What is the other one? Oh, if there's dessert as well.
I'm pretty sure they said one bowl of soup.
It's clearly dinner time, I think.
He's hungry.
Okay, so yours is you split the soup. You did 50-50.
Unless you're on diet.
Assuming no one is on diet. And then those other guys, they split it, but in a very interesting way. One to drink the soup and another one to eat the pieces that they like. Okay? And then, which other group?
So it was me and Val. So I'm very hungry. I haven't had lunch. So there's a bowl of soup and it smells divine. Poor Val wants to have a piece of the soup and I'm like, no, but I'm hungry. I'm very hungry. Can I please have the bowl? You'll see what you can find elsewhere, but can I please have it? Because I just had a breakfast on the go. So I'm really hungry. And she offered me a choki, said, you know what? If I can have just a spoon of the soup, then you will have the choki. And I said, you know what? Better yet. Let's share it. And then, but I'll have the choki also.
Oh, wow.
We're getting more value than the soup. And then there was the last group. I think that is Mabatu.
Yeah, it was myself and Karima. I think both of us went into our negotiation salivating. And the first thing we kind of both said was, damn girl, we're both hungry. So we recognized our common need for the soup, right? And we're both cold. So there wasn't an argument per se. We said, what's on the table? The soup. And then we thought, what else is not on the table? So we used our imaginations and said, you know, there's a loaf of bread as well. And we both will have much better sustenance if we get the soup and the bread, right? And so it was quite easy to share. But I think we both acknowledged the fact that when it's you know, two people, equality, because we were kind of vying on the idea of being equal in our sharing is relatively simple to, to achieve. The complexity comes in when we said, what if there were 8 people vying for the same cup of soup?
Yeah.
We need to look at equality versus equitability, because they're not the same thing. And then there are many layers that come in. You could argue who's on diet, who's got this allergy, or do we say, who are the youngest? Very often in our families, we say the children have to be fed first. So we recognize the fact that the scenario itself was relatively simple, but we tried to play around with what other scenarios could have emerged when we had to share something that really is a need. We all want to survive. We all have people, depending on us. And so I think we probably had more question marks than a definite answer. And we are hoping then that in the session on Saturday, the girls themselves will think about the layers that are not seen. And while they may not leave with a solid, you must negotiate in this way, they will know what to look out for in terms of negotiating for themselves and for others.
Exactly. So any other takes? Thank you so much, Mabatu. By the way, Mabatu is facilitating for us on Saturday. You can see who has really done her homework.
Yeah.
So, but any other ideas or any other comments from anyone else? Yeah. Okay. So let me just put the screen back up. Okay. So there's our bowl of soup. Okay. So here let me just get this out of the way. So there are different options. And I think that's the big lesson, that anytime you're negotiating, you need to recognize that there are options. So the classic option, I don't know whether anyone did this one. Did anyone take the soup all? I guess if someone was on a diet, in Kini's one person would have taken it, yeah? But be wary of also giving up too easily. It's almost negotiating from a position of weakness. I respect Miss Boipuso. I'm not about to, try and figure out why she even needs the soup. It's just easier to give her the soup. And I think that's one of the things we would not like to encourage, right? So the other one is each person takes half. I think Kini again and Boipuso, that's what you agreed, right? 50-50.
Yes,
Yeah?
50-50.
Okay. So I mean, in a way, 2 people both benefit, but it also tends to be the laziest alternative. And if you're asking whether the technique of really listening and trying to understand whether you understood the other, one could query you. Yes, it might be the right solution, but in a number of instances, if you really make the effort to listen, you might actually end up with different proportions, which I think is what happened in Natasha's group, right?
Yeah.
Natasha?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how you weigh liquid versus vegetables.
Okay, but the thing is that I think you expressed something. You said you don't, I remember while I was in the room, you said you don't like soup, but you're willing to take the liquid.
I don't like chunky soup.
You don't like chunky soup, okay. So you expressed that to Yavini, right?
Yes.
And then Yavini, did you say anything back?
Yeah, I said basically, well, then we've got an easy split because I don't.
We don't need to take anything.
I get what you're saying is that because if she's drinking all the liquid and I'm getting a couple of vegetables floating around, then I'm giving in too easily,
Hey, there's lots of vegetables in that bowl. Look there, it's full.
No, but I think you're also, you've probably, I think, found a better match than the half-half, because you've actually said you don't like the chunky bits. So that's fine. Take the bit that you like and you're fine with the vegetables, and that's what you take. So this is where sometimes people end up with different proportions, and this is where equity kicks in, the concept of equity, because equality is when everyone is given exactly the same.
Yeah.
But if someone's need is greater, then it makes sense that that person might need to be given a little bit more in order for that person to reach the same level of satisfaction as the other person, yeah?
And so, sorry, Rita, I wanted to say something there, because we said it was interesting that we had to decide, what was of value between ourselves, because one would assume, like Natasha might assume that everybody wants the liquid, and I must assume that everybody wants the vegetables, you know, but we just, with negotiating, we both had an equitable.
But how did you find out what she liked?
Oh, I didn't even hide it.
That was very easy. That's
Think about the communication, art of communication. What's the first skill? It's listening.
Asking the questions and listening, yeah.
And listening. Yes. And yes, indeed, you were clear. So that's this session builds up a lot. It is so intertwined with the communication. For you to negotiate in the first place, you have got to be able to articulate your want, the why. But on the other hand, and you've got to be clear about it, you've got to be persuasive about it. But for you to also then understand what the other wants, you really have to listen. You've got to put yourself in their shoes and really try and get why, you know, she doesn't like the soup the way it has been presented. So that's how you could easily come up then with option 3, different amounts, but all of you are satisfied with it. Then there is a fourth option whereby you create value. If I were negotiating with any of you, but someone talked about this. They said we'll find bread and we will have even more. Ntabi saying, is that you and Val? Hello?
I think it was Mabato.
It's us. It's myself.
It's us.
No, it wasn't us. Yeah.
Who was it?
It was me and Karima.
Yes, because you said you'd find some bread.
Yeah.
And you'd make more. I thought that, you know, it means you can even do the bunny chow. I looked at the amount of veggies that were in there. So basically, there's creating value, and this is obviously a higher level where you're working together with the person. You start off thinking this person has one ask, I have another ask. You both get value, but you get a higher level of value than you initially intended to. And then the last.
We introduced a choki, remember, a chocolate.
You introduced a choki as well. You scrambled around and said, okay, fine, there will also be a choki. Yeah. So, and then there are always options. So you can also decide that, you know what, if we really, our intention is, you know, to be able to make sure that we each get a cup of soup. Maybe we can quickly sell it off over here and then, you know, go down the road and buy a soup more cost effectively. And then the point is, to try and see if you can get the girls to always be inspired to kind of like push the boundaries a little bit. And then the last option is you can always walk away. And this applies in serious circumstances. So like, I keep on hearing about this discussion when you listen to the cohorts that talk about the young women at work who go in to negotiate like a salary increase, or they go in to negotiate a promotion, and favors are asked of them. Give me a portion of your salary. Alternatively, you know, go to bed with me or go out with me. Then you will get your promotion. So again, the girls need to understand that there's always an option to walk away. If it's conflicting with your value system or it's making you do something you're not ready to do, that is an option. Are we okay?
Yeah. Yes.
Now, the reason why we're trying to get them to share with us the scenarios where they think they negotiate is for us to be able to speak to them. This, I use the soup example because I knew we're going to be meeting in the evening and it's winter time, it makes sense. So you guys can figure out, and I would love to hear your ideas in terms of what we would use. But what we're trying to say is that coming out of a negotiation, it's not always going in to win. There are different ways of winning, and you can see them options 1 through 4. But there's always the option to walk away. And we will come back to walk away when we do ethics and values in session 6. When we talk about the framework as to how you uphold your ethics and your value system, one of the options is to walk away. But the question here as well is, how did you decide? What did you apply out of the U framework? So the reason why we propose that this activity be part of the circle is that depending on where you slot it, this can be a precursor to you guys discussing the U framework. Alternatively, you can start off by discussing the U framework and then do this activity. So let me ask you, what would you guys like to do? So it's a very interesting activity. Normally it's done in plenary, But when we were developing the agenda for today, we thought if we did it in plenary, it's going to take a long time and then we might not finish on time. So we figured just break it into the groups and see if you can conduct it within the groups. Do you think it's doable?
Yes, Rita.
Absolutely.
Given the challenges that we have had in the past and the age group that we have, like myself and Andiswa, we have the ones from the high school,
yes,
not from the youth center. So I think for us, what will work is to start with a framework and then go into, so that we can just give them a base to start from. And then maybe it will also help them to have some ideas when we go into the role play to say, what is it that, yeah.
Okay. So the key messages coming out of this activity, when you debrief on it, so we then ask, you know, now think back to the video and how does it correlate? Or think back to the earlier discussion we had on the U framework and how does it correlate? And how did they apply, you know, the Y or U? For example, under the option 1, to what extent was the other taken into consideration if your person A, if B is the one who took it, and your person A, how did you apply the framework, or did you not, you know, even apply it? And really that's the trick. It's what I was walking you through. So you can begin to see where the skills of communication, the clarity, the being clear with your ask, the persuasiveness, the listening skills would probably result in the higher level options, which are options 3 and 4. And then 5 is the one that gives comfort to the girls that they must never be caught up in a negotiation once they have understood what is at stake, where they can't walk away from.